Thank you so much to the NBS TRN for inviting me to speak today. My name is Anna Grantham, and I am the Programs Director for the Hunter's Hope Foundation. And today I will be sharing with you about our advocacy program for Krabbe newborn screening. Hunter's Hope was started in 1997 by former NFL quarterback Jim Kelly and his wife Jill, when their son Hunter was diagnosed with Krabbe leukodystrophy. And the foundation's mission is to help families affected by Krabbe and other leukodystrophies as they cope with these devastating diseases. And we have several programs, but one of the primary ways that we help families affected by Krabbe is through our newborn screening advocacy efforts. So Hunter Kelly was diagnosed with an infantile form of Krabbe disease at 4 months old, and actually the first picture on the slide here is the day he was diagnosed with Krabbe. And at that time, his parents were told that he likely wouldn't make it past his second birthday. But Hunter truly defied the odds, and he lived to be 8.5 years old, but he did suffer every day of his life. Krabbe disease is both a lysosomal storage disorder and a leukodystrophy, and it has an estimated incidence rate of 1 in 100,000. It's hard to adequately describe just how devastating this disease is. With the most common form, the infantile Krabbe, babies become inconsolable at the onset of the disease, and they rapidly lose any previously gained milestones. These children cannot speak, swallow, walk, or crawl, and they suffer from many painful disease complications such as pneumonia and seizures. Children with the infantile form of Krabbe typically do not live beyond their second birthday. And on the screen, you see a few of the beautiful children that we have been able to serve who've been impacted by Krabbe disease. Tragically, these children were not born in a state with Krabbe newborn screening and therefore were diagnosed too late for treatment. Because of how rapidly Krabbe progresses, and also due to the rarity of the disease, newborn screening is essential to ensuring that all children with Krabbe are eligible for treatment to halt disease progression. Currently, the standard of care for a child diagnosed with Krabbe pre-symptomatically is a stem cell transplant, although there are currently 2 clinical trials for potential therapies for Krabbe that have just launched, and we're very excited about that as well. The difference between children who are treated pre-symptomatically versus those who are not is undeniable. Children with Krabbe who are diagnosed and treated early are able to speak, laugh, move independently, they go to school, and most importantly, they are living. Historically, the only chance a child had for treatment for Krabbe is if they had an older sibling affected by the disease. And that is the case for the 2 children in this photo, Zoe and Michael. But that's not acceptable. A family should not have to lose one child to save another. It's truly unthinkable for any child to suffer and die from a treatable disease. Now, newborn screening for Krabbe provides the opportunity for treatment for all children affected by the disease. And like I mentioned, the future is more hopeful than ever, with the potential for even better treatment options on the horizon. So on your screen, you see Ty, Ezra, and Elmer. They all have Krabbe disease, but they were diagnosed and treated early thanks to their state's newborn screening program. Our mission is to make sure that every child has the same chance at life that Ty, Ezra, and Elmer have had. So I want to give a little background on the history of our newborn screening program. When Hunter's Hope first started, newborn screening for Krabbe did not yet exist. But in 2006, New York became the first state to screen for Krabbe. And I do want to just take a minute and applaud the wonderful newborn screening team in New York. They're truly pioneers, not just for Krabbe disease, but also for so many other disorders and newborn screening. So we're very grateful for all of the important work that they do. The Foundation's newborn screening efforts extend beyond Krabbe disease and beyond advocating at the state level. The Kelly family was very involved in the passage of the Newborn Screening Saves Lives Act in 2007, and we continue to support the reauthorization of this bill, plus many other federal initiatives for newborn screening in the U.S. In 2007, Hunter's Hope submitted the nomination form for Krabbe's inclusion on the Recommended Uniform Screening Panel, or RUSP, and in 2009, the committee voted against adding Krabbe to be included on the RUSP at a vote of 8 to 7, and identified 3 evidence gaps that needed to be filled. So the first gap stated that there needed to be consensus about the case definition of what constitutes early infantile Krabbe disease. The second gap called for additional information about the testing algorithm for early infantile Krabbe and whether testing for Krabbe disease would be a standalone test or done with multiplex testing. And finally, the committee stated that more information was needed about the specific benefits of stem cell transplant to treat patients, as well as what mutations would benefit from that treatment. So after the very difficult blow of Krabbe not making it onto the RUSP by 1 vote, we were faced with needing to fill the evidence gap so that we could reapply for Krabbe disease to be included on the RUSP. And there were also many other obstacles to overcome. I think anyone who has been involved in advocating for newborn screening for a particular disease can probably relate to this visual. It truly felt like we had this huge mountain to climb, but with very little direction or help. We certainly appreciated the committee providing us with the evidence gaps, but there wasn't really any direction or help as to how exactly the gaps were to be filled. Thankfully, we do have a wonderful team of experts that are always willing to help, but it was still very difficult to determine what our next steps should be. I think it's also important to point out that Krabbe newborn screening emerged during a very transitional time when the policies for newborn screening were really shifting in the U.S. The Advisory Committee on Heritable Disorders in Newborns and Children was in its infancy, and most states required legislation in order to add a disease to its newborn screening panel. But because Krabbe is so utterly devastating and only treatable if diagnosed prior to the onset of symptoms, we knew that we could not wait for Krabbe's inclusion on the RUSP to continue our state advocacy efforts. Also, the newborn screening program for Krabbe in New York had faced many challenges, including the fact that the number of children identified with infantile Krabbe was far smaller than anticipated. So it was clear that we would not be able to fill the evidence gaps without more states screening for Krabbe. So that was very much in line with our driving force, which is to save children's lives by ensuring that every child with Krabbe had the chance at life that they deserved. Hunter's Hope is a very small organization, and so to advocate for states to add Krabbe newborn screening, we have been honored to partner with the most amazing families affected by Krabbe disease who have reached out to us for help in their efforts. These family advocates across the country that have been impacted by Krabbe so selflessly and urgently want to make sure that no child suffers the way that their child has. Through grassroots efforts, we partner with these families to help them in their advocacy efforts, and I so deeply respect each one of these families. Just a few of them are on the screen. There are many, many more that we've worked with. This is really a gut-wrenching process for them. Advocating for Krabbe newborn screening in any state is challenging, and many times it takes years. Although it's too late for these families' children to benefit from Krabbe newborn screening, they're still pouring their hearts into trying to save future children born in their states. And I truly believe that state advocacy for Krabbe newborn screening has been crucial to advancing us to where we are today. So from its inception, Hunter's Hope has held our annual Medical and Family Symposium every year. And this has enabled us to form partnerships with newborn screening and Lupa dystrophy experts to help accomplish our mission. But in order to really focus in on Krabbe newborn screening, we created the Krabbe Newborn Screening Task Force in 2015. At our first meeting, which you see a picture of on your screen, we put the gaps identified by the Secretary Advisory Committee that I just shared with you up on the screen in the meeting room and spent time discussing whether or not a gap had been filled. If it was filled, was there published data? If not, what needs to be done to fill this gap? And we also discussed what else needed to be done to improve outcomes for children with a positive screen for Krabbe. So at that meeting, we determined to publish newborn screening guidelines for clinical follow-up for children with a positive screen for Krabbe disease, to also publish outcomes of Krabbe children treated through stem cell transplant, and a plan was made to continue to work together to determine the role of cytosine in Krabbe newborn screening, amongst several other goals. So we really came away from this first task force meeting with a very long to-do list, but it really served as the roadmap to getting us ready to reapply for Krabbe's inclusion on the recommended uniform screening panel. At the same time, around the same time in 2015, we launched our Lupa Dystrophy Care Network, or the LCN. The LCN is a network of patients and advocates and medical providers who are committed to revolutionizing the quality of life of leukodystrophy patients through proactive medical care, improved standards of care, and specialized centers. The LCN is for any individual with leukodystrophy, not just those identified through newborn screening, but the LCN is certainly very beneficial for children with a positive screen for Krabbe or another leukodystrophy. So currently there are 10 certified LCN centers throughout the U.S., and these centers are committed to bringing expert care for Krabbe and other leukodystrophy patients. This includes long-term follow-up for children with a positive screen for Krabbe and other leukodystrophies. And if the center does not provide treatment for children with Krabbe or other leukodystrophies, although most do, they have a system in place to provide referrals as appropriate. So we currently have several additional LCN candidate centers and affiliates. So we definitely expect the number of certified centers across the U.S. to continue to grow. And another key aspect of the LCN is that there's a system in place to work with a family's local care team to ensure that expert medical care is accessible to everyone, even if you're not able to travel to one of our certified centers. As I've already alluded to, our newborn screening strategy is multifaceted. This slide that you're looking at here is a high-level overview of our current newborn screening initiatives. In addition to our federal and state advocacy efforts, we have several work groups and initiatives that were really born out of that first Krabbe newborn screening task force. Each of these groups has been created from the partnerships that we have with medical and newborn screening providers in states screening for Krabbe, as well as our team of Krabbe and newborn screening experts that we've worked so closely with for many years. One initiative that I did want to make sure to highlight here is the Krabbe Newborn Screening Council. So this council is led by Dr. Joanne Kurtzberg and Dr. Joe Orsini. The group meets every month, and it is open to any medical or newborn screening provider in states actively screening for Krabbe, as well as states that have Krabbe newborn screening on the horizon. So the purpose of the council is to ensure that every stakeholder in the Krabbe newborn screening system has the most current information regarding Krabbe newborn screening. This includes information about clinical trials, best practices and follow-up and treatment, and most importantly, to ensure that every child with a positive screen for Krabbe has the best possible outcome. I will be giving my email at the end of this presentation, so please feel free to contact me if you would like to become a Krabbe NBS Council member. Currently, 9 states include Krabbe disease on their newborn screening panels, and if all goes as planned, Georgia should launch statewide screening for Krabbe soon as well. There are other states that you see in the light green that are working toward implementation, and then many states with activity for Krabbe newborn screening because of the wonderful families in the Krabbe community who continue to work so hard to expand Krabbe newborn screening. So we're very hopeful that this number of states screening for Krabbe continues to grow. We are so grateful and proud to have partnered with the wonderful experts that you see on this slide to submit our nomination form for Krabbe disease to be included on the RUSP in July of this year. It is an immense amount of work just to be ready to reapply for the RUSP, and completing the nomination form and preparing the nomination package is, of course, also a very large undertaking. But after a decade of work, I can say to you confidently that the gaps that were identified by the Secretary Advisory Committee in 2009, those gaps are filled. Krabbe can be cost effectively screened with other diseases, including 3 disorders that are already on the RUSP: XALD, Pompe, and NPS 1. Furthermore, recent natural history studies have provided the basis of categorizing several forms of Krabbe disease with limited overlap. But I think perhaps the most impactful advancement in Krabbe newborn screening over the last decade has been the ability to measure a biomarker for the disease called cytosine in newborn screening dried blood spot samples. So when this is used as a second-tier test, it virtually eliminates false positive results, and it allows for a rapid diagnosis and therefore allows for a rapid referral to treatment when appropriate, which is very important for children with infantile Krabbe disease. Cytosine has also simplified the follow-up protocol for children at risk for later onset Krabbe disease forms. It reduces the need for invasive studies to predict the onset and progression of disease. And also, as I mentioned earlier, guidelines have been published to facilitate the diagnosis, monitoring, and treatment for both infantile Krabbe and later onset forms of the disease. So if you're interested in hearing more details about all of the wonderful advancements that have been made in Krabbe newborn screening from a more scientific or medical perspective, I do want to encourage you to go to the Hunter's Hope website, and you can find the 2021 virtual symposium page, and we have the presentations from that meeting, which we had in July, available for you to watch, so you can hear directly from these experts and many others about the encouraging and exciting advancements that have been made. There are also many medical and scientific articles that have been published, and I encourage you, if you're interested in taking a deeper dive, to look into those as well. So I just want to thank the NBS TRN again for letting me share with you today. Here is my contact information. I would love to hear from you. Please let me know if you have any questions or any interest in becoming involved in any of our initiatives. Thank you so much.